Last summer, during his presidential campaign, Donald Trump said this.
In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Don't worry about the future. You have to vote on November 5th. After that, you don't have to worry about voting anymore. I don't care, because we're going to fix it. The country will be fixed, and we won't even need your vote anymore.
He said you don't have to worry about voting anymore. Now, just like the other times he said something outrageous, many people said we shouldn't believe him. Of course, he wasn't really talking about canceling future elections. But if the president's actions since returning to office have taught us anything, it's that we should take his words at face value.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border, and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
Until now, the notion that a U.S. president would let an unelected billionaire smash our federal government and rummage through our most sensitive personal data was unimaginable. It was unimaginable that we would start a trade war with Canada, our closest ally. Unimaginable that a president would refuse to comply with federal court orders to reinstate millions of civil servants that Elon Musk fired illegally. But the truth is, President Trump doesn't make jokes. He floats trial balloons. We have to take him at his word. That's why a bill that Congress wants to fast track for passage is so dangerous. It's called the SAVE Act, and it's being pushed by the president's political allies. This SAVE Act masquerades as a reasonable election security bill. But the president, the bill's sponsors, and opponents of democracy everywhere know its true purpose: to end American elections as we know them. How would they do that? By going after your right to vote. Now, as Michigan's Secretary of State, I work side by side with dedicated state and local election officials in every community. All of us, Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike, are deeply committed to ensuring that every valid vote and only valid votes count in every election. And we've been successful. Michigan's elections are secure and accessible. The 2024 general election was the third consecutive election in our state with record-breaking voter turnout. More than 5.7 million voters cast a ballot last November. That's close to 80% of all active registered voters in Michigan. We also had the third highest turnout rate in the nation among eligible voters, more than 10 points higher than the national average. MIT's Election Data and Science Lab has ranked Michigan number 2 in the nation for secure election administration. And when I first took office, we were number 31. But the SAVE Act puts all of this in jeopardy. This bill is not about security. It is a trick. They are trying to take something we all agree on, that only U.S. citizens should vote in U.S. elections, and use that to make it harder for millions of eligible citizens to cast their vote. The SAVE Act would block millions of Americans from registering to vote by requiring voters to register in person with either their birth certificate or a U.S. passport. Here in Michigan, voters can easily register to vote with a driver's license, state ID, military ID, or other documents that most of us carry around every day. But under the SAVE Act, none of those documents, not even a Michigan Real ID, would be enough. Now, other states have tried this already, but it has always had the same result, blocking tens of thousands of citizens from casting their vote. So who is the SAVE Act most likely to silence? Michigan women, especially married women. More than 2.2 million women in our state have married names that aren't the same as the name on their birth certificate. If those women who have changed their names don't have an updated U.S. passport, and more than 5.8 million Michigan adults don't, they might not be able to register. But women aren't the only Michiganders who would struggle to show the right legal documents. The SAVE Act would make it harder for seniors born in their family home, for victims of house fires, tornadoes, or floods, for college students who may not have immediate access to their documents back home, for people who were adopted in the U.S. or overseas. This bill makes voting harder for all of those folks and tribal citizens, low-income earners, people in rural communities, Black Michiganders, and active duty military service members. The SAVE Act not only blocks Americans from voting, but it also makes it so much harder and expensive for us to administer elections. Voters would lose their ability to register to vote by mail or online. So every time a voter updates their registration or moves, they'd have to go in person to a clerk's office with their documentation. Local election clerks would have to work one-on-one with voters to find, show, and verify the documents they need. This makes government less efficient and more intrusive. It protects politicians from accountability if you don't like their actions. We are on a dangerous path, one that puts the vote and the voice of every single American, including yours, on the line. But you can still use your voice to push back. Now is the time to step up, speak out, and protect your voice and your vote. Contact your representatives in Congress and ask them if they support the SAVE Act. Tell them how you feel about this plan to block your vote, because voting is your power. Let's all fight to make sure we can keep it, not just in the next election, but for every election.